The round that punched through the Humvee's windshield wasn't random. Staff Sergeant Rebecca Hartley knew that the instant before the IED detonated beneath her vehicle. In the half-second of weightlessness before physics took over, before the armored truck flipped 3 times into a wadi, one thought flashed through her mind. Granddad was right. They always are. When she came to alone in 118-degree heat, with no water, no comms, and an enemy battalion closing in, she remembered what Colonel James Ironside Hartley had told her in the Arizona desert 14 years ago. Rebecca War never changes, just the uniforms. The desert doesn't give a damn about your technology. Out here, you survive the old way, or you don't survive at all. The taste of blood mixed with sand on her tongue. Her head rang like a church bell. The world spun in lazy circles that made her stomach lurch. Focus, assess, adapt, act. SEAL training took over where consciousness faltered. She pulled herself through the shattered window. Broken glass ground into her palms. The heat hit her like a physical blow, the kind of heat that steals your breath, the kind that kills in hours if you're not careful. Her M4 carbine was still strapped across her chest. 4 magazines, 120 rounds. The radio on her vest was crushed, shattered into electronic junk by the impact with the turret mount. Her camelback had ruptured, 3 liters of water already soaking into the sand beneath her boots. She had a knife, a first aid kit, 2 MREs that might have survived the crash. And somewhere close, getting closer, she could hear engines. Lots of them. The rest of her SEAL team was gone, scattered by the ambush, their vehicles racing away through dust and smoke trying to escape the kill zone. Standard protocol: if you can't extract everyone, you save who you can and come back for the rest. Except the enemy was already closing in, and coming back might not be an option. Becca crawled to higher ground. Every movement sent pain lancing through her ribs. Probably cracked, definitely bruised. She'd had worse during Hell Week. From a rock outcropping 30 meters above the wreckage, she counted vehicles. 6, no 7, professional military, not militia. They moved in coordinated search patterns, methodical, disciplined, dangerous. She had maybe 3 minutes before they found the Humvee, maybe 5 before they found her trail. The smart play was to run, get distance, hide, wait for rescue. But something in her grandfather's voice whispered through the pain and the fear. When the enemy has the advantage, Rebecca, you don't play their game. You change the rules. You make them afraid. You become a ghost. She took a breath, tasted copper and grit. Then she moved. Not away from the enemy, parallel to them, using every microterrain feature, every shadow, every depression in the ground. The way Granddad had taught her when she was 15 years old and thought she knew everything. The way that had kept American operators alive in deserts from Korea to Iraq to Afghanistan for 70 years. The old ways, because technology fails, but training endures. Summer 2010, Sonoran Desert, Arizona. Rebecca Hartley was 15 years old and pissed off about it. Her grandfather had driven her 6 hours into the desert, past the last gas station, past the last cellular tower, past anything that resembled civilization. Now they stood in an ocean of terrain and rock and heat that made her eyes water. A canteen, a poncho, a knife. That's what you get, Rebecca. 3 days. Find your way back to the truck. Or don't. Your choice. Granddad, this is insane. Mom's going to kill you. Your mother survived me teaching her survival skills. You will too. He handed her a worn compass. Korean War vintage. The kind they gave pilots in case they got shot down over the north. No batteries. No GPS chip. Just magnetized metal and faith. Out here, this is worth more than any smartphone. Learn why. Colonel James Ironside Hartley was 64 years old. He'd earned his nickname in the First Gulf War, leading classified operations behind Iraqi lines, while the rest of the world watched smart bombs on CNN. Special Forces. The kind of soldier they don't make movies about because the missions stay classified for 50 years. After retirement, he'd done something unusual. He'd started teaching. Not at military academies, not at official schools, private courses, small groups. The kind of training you couldn't get anywhere else. The kind the government pretended didn't exist. Young Becca didn't understand that part yet. She just knew Granddad had taught her to shoot when she was 10, taught her to navigate by stars when she was 12, taught her that toughness wasn't about muscle, it was about will. Now apparently he was teaching her to not die in the desert. 3 days later, she stumbled back to the pickup truck, sunburned, dehydrated, exhausted, but alive. Granddad was waiting. A cooler full of ice water sat in the truck bed. He handed her a bottle without a word. She drank half of it before she could speak. "How'd I do?" "You're here. That's passing." He pointed to tire tracks in the sand. "Company came by yesterday, asked what I was doing out here alone. Told them I was waiting for my granddaughter. They asked if you were okay. I said you were learning." Who were they? Government types, the kind who drive unmarked SUVs and carry weapons they don't advertise. She looked at the tracks, fresh, recent. "Were you training someone else out here before me?" He smiled, the kind of smile that held secrets. "Rebecca, there are things I can't tell you, things that stay classified long after I'm dead. But I can tell you this, the skills I'm teaching you, they have kept American operators alive in denied territory for decades. Korea, Desert Storm, Afghanistan. The locations change, the enemy changes, but the desert never changes." He pulled out a worn photograph from his wallet. It showed a younger version of himself. Desert camouflage. Somewhere in Iraq, judging by the sand. He stood with a group of men, all of them hard-eyed, all of them armed. One face had been carefully cut out of the photo. "This was February 1991, he said. Operation Desert Saber, the ground war. What they showed on TV lasted 4 days. What they didn't show lasted longer. We went deep into Iraqi territory, hunted high-value targets, Soviet advisors helping Saddam's chemical weapons program. Soviet, but the Cold War was over on paper, not in practice." He tapped the cutout section. "We found 6 Russian GRU officers coordinating Iraqi forces. Our mission was to eliminate them, extract intelligence, get out clean. Did you 5 out of 6? The 6th one escaped. I put a round through his shoulder, but he got away. Intelligence said he went back to Russia, disappeared. What happened to the photo? His face, I cut it out. Don't need to remember it." He pointed to the desert around them. "But I remember what he taught me that night, what all my enemies have taught me. What's that? Survival isn't about being the strongest, or the fastest, or having the best gear. It's about being willing to do what others won't, to adapt when everyone else quits, to remember that in the desert there's no backup, no second chances, just you and your training." Rebecca looked at the photograph again. "Did you ever see him again?" "The one who escaped, not yet. But men like that don't forget. They carry grudges, like other people carry wallets. If he's still alive, he's still angry. And if he ever figures out who I am, where I live, who my family is." He stopped, looked at her hard. "That's why I'm teaching you this, Rebecca. Not because I think you'll join the military, not because I want you to be a soldier, but because the world is full of men like that Soviet officer. Men who don't quit, men who remember. And if they ever come for my family, I need to know my granddaughter can survive." She was 15. She didn't fully understand. But she remembered. Years later, in a different desert with different enemies, she would understand perfectly. The memory faded. Becca was back in the present, back in the heat, back in the fight. She'd moved 400 meters from the crash site, used every technique Granddad had drilled into her. Low crawl, shadow movement, patience. The enemy vehicles had found her Humvee. Soldiers dismounted, searched the wreckage, called out in a language she didn't speak. One of them held up her torn camelback, showed it to the others. They knew she was on foot, wounded, without water. They thought she was easy prey. From her concealed position, Becca allowed herself a thin smile. "Thank you, Granddad. Let's show them what easy prey looks like." 3 days earlier, forward operating base Liberty, somewhere in hostile territory. The briefing tent was hot, despite the air conditioning units running full blast. Commander Catherine Reynolds stood at the front, 42 years old, MIT graduate, 15 years in naval special warfare. She had a reputation for running clean operations. By the book. No cowboys, no heroics, just professionals doing professional work. 8 SEAL operators sat in folding chairs. Men and women who'd trained together for months. The kind of team that moved like a single organism. each operator knowing exactly what the others would do before they did it. Target is a high-value individual, Reynolds said. She tapped the screen behind her. A photograph appeared. Middle-aged man, military bearing, enemy commander responsible for coordinating attacks against our forces. Intelligence puts him in this compound. She clicked to satellite imagery, a fortified structure on the outskirts of a hostile village, surrounded by walls, guard towers, the kind of place that said important person lives here. We go in fast, extract him, get out before his security forces can respond. She looked at each operator in turn. Questions. Master Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb raised a hand. Webb was 58 years old, 30 years in the teams. He'd been a SEAL when half the people in the room were still in elementary school. Desert Storm veteran, Afghanistan, Iraq. Every major operation for 3 decades. The kind of operator who'd seen everything, done everything, survived everything. His face was weathered like old leather. His eyes were the kind that had watched friends die and kept moving forward anyway. RO, he asked. Rules of engagement. Weapons tight unless fired upon. We want this guy alive for interrogation, but if it goes hot, you're cleared to defend yourselves with appropriate force. Webb nodded, looked at the maps again. Something in his expression suggested he didn't believe a word of it. After the briefing, Becca performed her pre-mission ritual. She'd done it before every operation for the past 3 years. Since earning her trident, since proving to every doubter that a woman could hack it in the teams. Every piece of equipment got checked. Twice. 3 times if she had time. M4 carbine. Customized to her preferences. Upgraded trigger. Enhanced optics. Suppressor for close quarters work. She'd fired 10,000 rounds through this weapon. Knew exactly how it would behave at any range, any condition. Magazines, 4 of them. 30 rounds each. Loaded with M855A1 enhanced performance rounds. The kind that punched through body armor and kept going. First aid kit, tourniquets, pressure bandages, morphine, the stuff that kept you alive long enough to get to real medical care. Camelback, 3 liters, filled with water and electrolyte powder. The desert would try to kill you through dehydration before the enemy got a chance. Night vision, radio, strobe, signal mirror. The signal mirror was special. Granddad had given it to her the day she left for basic training. Korean War issue. The kind they gave pilots in case they got shot down behind enemy lines. Same one he'd used in Iraq 1991. Keep this, he'd said. Technology fails. Electronics break. But a mirror and sunlight. That's worked for 1,000 years. Still works today. She'd carried it on every mission since. Hey, Price, she looked up. Petty Officer Danny Morrison stood in the doorway of the equipment tent. 31 years old, breacher specialist, the guy who blew holes in walls so the team could storm through. He had an easy smile and a reputation for staying cool under pressure. You ready for this? He asked. It's going to be hairy out there. Always ready. He walked closer, lowered his voice. Listen, I know things have been weird lately. If something happens out there, I just want you to know. You're good people, Becca. Your granddad would be proud. She frowned. What are you talking about? Oh, nothing. Just be careful. Okay? He left before she could respond. Something in his tone bothered her. Something that felt like goodbye. Webb found her 10 minutes later. The old SEAL looked tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying secrets. Kid, got a minute? They walked to the edge of the base, where the barriers gave way to open desert. The sun was setting, painting the sand in shades of orange and red and gold. Beautiful, Webb said. Never gets old. You didn't come out here to talk about the Sunset Chief. No. He pulled out a photograph, worn, creased, the kind you keep in a wallet for decades. It showed a younger Webb, maybe 33, standing in a desert with an older man, both in camouflage, both armed. The older man was Becca's grandfather. You knew him. She tried to keep the surprise out of her voice. Colonel James Hartley was my SEER instructor in 2005. I was 39. Thought I was hot shit. Thought I knew everything about desert survival because I'd done a rotation in Iraq. He smiled at the memory. Your granddad took me and 5 other team guys into the Arizona desert. No food, no water, just knives and ponchos. Told us to survive a week. Said if we made it, we'd learn something. If we didn't, we'd learn even more. How many made it? All of us, eventually. But your granddad made us earn it. He taught us techniques I'd never seen in any official manual. Things he'd learned in the Gulf War. Things Soviet Spetsnaz used in Afghanistan. Things that worked when all the high-speed gear failed. He looked at Becca. Your grandfather told me something that week. Said his granddaughter was special. Said she had the gift. The ability to think like terrain. To become invisible. To survive when others quit. He said you'd be coming to the teams. Made me promise to watch your back when you did. Becca felt something catch in her throat. Granddad died 4 years ago, I know. And I've been keeping my promise ever since you showed up. Webb's expression hardened. This mission tonight. Something feels wrong, too clean, too easy. You think it's a trap? I think nothing is ever as simple as it looks in a briefing. Webb handed her the photograph. Keep this. Remember what he taught you. If things go sideways out there, you forget the tech. You forget the plan. You go back to basics. The old ways. Your grandfather's ways. He started to walk away. Stopped. Turned back. One more thing. Morrison's been acting strange. Checking some kind of device that's not standard issue. I asked him about it. He said it was personal. But I don't like it. You think he's compromised. I think we live in a world where good men get forced into bad choices. Family threats, blackmail. The enemy's gotten smarter about that. Webb's jaw tightened. If something happens to him out there, know that it probably wasn't his choice. And if something happens to, you know that I'll burn the whole desert down to get you back. He walked away, leaving Becca alone with the photograph and a growing sense of dread. They loaded into 3 Humvees at 0200 hours. Darkness, absolute. The kind you only get in the desert far from city lights. Becca rode in the second vehicle with Webb and Morrison, weapons ready, night vision turning the landscape into shades of green and black. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions. Sand, rock, scattered vegetation that looked dead even in the best conditions. Command says air support is on standby, Webb informed them over the vehicle's intercom. Apaches at the border, ready to move if we need them. But they're not crossing into hostile territory unless we're in serious trouble. Politically sensitive, apparently. Politics, Morrison muttered from the turret. Always politics. We're the ones getting shot at, but politicians in safe offices get to decide what support we get. Becca watched Morrison in the green glow of night vision. He was tense, more than usual. His hand kept drifting to his vest, to a pouch that didn't hold standard equipment. Webb caught her looking. Gave a slight shake of his head. Not now. Whatever Morrison was carrying, whatever was happening, Webb knew about it. And that meant it was part of something bigger. Something they couldn't talk about on an open channel. They reached the target compound at 0430, an hour before dawn. The structure was exactly where intelligence said it would be. Fortified, guard towers, walls topped with razor wire. Through thermal optics, Becca could see heat signatures of sentries patrolling the perimeter. Professional security, not militia. That should have been the first warning. The assault went perfectly for the first 5 minutes. They breached the wall with shaped charges, moved through the compound and practiced silence, suppressed weapons dropping sentries before they could raise the alarm. Reynolds' team found the target in an upstairs bedroom, half asleep when they zip-tied his hands and began moving him toward extraction. That's when everything went wrong. The alarm sounded. Someone had found a dead guard faster than expected. Lights blazed throughout the compound. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions. What should have been a quiet extraction became a running gun battle as the SEAL team fought their way back to the vehicles. Move, move, Reynolds ordered. Get to the trucks. They made it under heavy fire. But now the entire village was waking up. And worse, they could hear engines in the distance. Enemy reinforcements. Responding to the alarm. Reynolds made the call every commander dreads. They had to leave immediately, or risk the entire team being overwhelmed. The 3 Humvees roared away from the compound, racing through narrow streets while bullets sparked off their armor. They made it to the desert outskirts, accelerating toward friendly territory, thinking they'd pulled off a successful if messy extraction. That's when the ambush hit. Enemy forces had set up a blocking position along their escape route. Technical vehicles with mounted machine guns, RPG teams in elevated positions, a well-planned trap designed to catch them in a kill zone. The lead Humvee took an RPG hit, spinning out but still mobile. The third vehicle's gunner was hit, slumping in his turret. Becca's vehicle swerved to avoid incoming fire. That's when the IED detonated. The blast lifted the entire Humvee off the ground, flipping it through the air like a toy. Becca had a moment of weightless confusion. Morrison shouting something. Webb grabbing for the oh shit handle. Then physics reasserted itself. The vehicle slammed into a wadi, rolling 3 times before coming to rest on its side. Her head hit something solid. The turret mount, maybe. Or the armored door. Stars exploded across her vision. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out all other sound. She couldn't tell which way was up. Couldn't remember where she was. Training took over. Even dazed and disoriented muscle memory guided her actions. Check for injuries. She could move all her limbs. Nothing felt broken. Find your weapon. Her M4 was still attached to its sling across her chest. Orient yourself. The vehicle was on its side. She needed to get out before something caught fire. She kicked out the already shattered window, pulled herself from the wreckage, emerging into chaos. The other 2 Humvees were nowhere to be seen. Either they'd made it past the ambush or they'd been destroyed. Smoke and dust obscured everything beyond 50 feet, and she could hear engines, close, getting closer. Her radio was crushed, smashed between her body and the vehicle's interior during the crash. Her camelback had ruptured. 3 liters of water already soaking into the sand beneath her feet. She had her M4, 4 magazines, a knife, a small first aid kit, and no way to call for help. The enemy was coming. Becca didn't panic. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she did what SEAL training had drilled into her through hundreds of hours of scenarios. Assess, adapt, act. Her situation was bad, but not hopeless. She was injured but mobile, armed but low on ammunition, isolated but not helpless. She needed to evade immediately. The enemy would converge on the crash site within minutes, expecting to find dead or wounded Americans. She needed to be gone before they arrived, leaving no obvious trail, buying herself time to think and plan. She moved away from the wreckage, staying low, using the terrain for concealment. The desert here was more than just flat sand. There were ravines, rock formations, scattered vegetation that could provide cover if you knew how to use it. And Becca knew. Her childhood in Arizona desert country combined with SEAL survival training and her grandfather's lessons had taught her how to move through this environment like a ghost. She heard vehicles arriving at the crash site behind her, shouts in a language she didn't speak, but understood the tone of. Excited, aggressive, hunting. They'd found the Humvee, were searching for survivors. She kept moving, putting distance between herself and the enemy, her mind already working through the tactical problems she faced. No water. That was the most immediate threat. In this heat already approaching 100 degrees even before noon, she'd be in serious trouble within hours without hydration. No communications. She couldn't call for help, couldn't let anyone know she was alive and needed extraction. Her team would assume she was dead or captured. Standard protocol said they'd request satellite imagery to confirm, might send a recovery team if they could confirm her status. But that would take time. She might not have time. Limited ammunition. 120 rounds might sound like a lot, but in sustained combat against superior numbers, she could burn through that in minutes. Every shot had to count. Every engagement had to be on her terms. But she had advantages too. She was a SEAL, trained in escape and evasion. She understood desert survival. She could move through this terrain better than the enemy forces hunting her. And most importantly, they had no idea who they were dealing with. They thought they were tracking a desperate, isolated American. Easy prey. They didn't know she was a predator too. The first priority was water. Without it, everything else was pointless. Becca oriented herself using the sun position and her memory of the map she'd studied before the mission. There should be a dry stream bed about 3 kilometers northeast, dry on the surface. But desert stream beds often had water if you knew where to dig. Granddad had taught her that in Arizona, 14 years ago. Find where the vegetation is slightly greener, where the sand is slightly darker. That's where moisture still exists underground. Dig 3 feet down, wait for seepage, filter it, drink it, live. She moved toward the wadi, using every bit of cover the terrain provided, stopping frequently to listen and observe. Behind her, she could hear vehicles spreading out, the enemy organizing a search pattern. They were noisy, undisciplined, overconfident. That would work in her favor. It took her 3 hours to cover 3 kilometers, moving slowly, carefully, conserving energy in the brutal heat. By the time she reached the stream bed, her mouth was cotton dry, her head pounding, her vision starting to blur at the edges. Heat exhaustion was setting in faster than she'd expected. The crash had taken more out of her than she'd realized. The stream bed looked completely dry, but Becca knew better. She found a spot where the sand looked slightly darker, slightly more compacted, indicating moisture beneath the surface. Using her knife and bare hands, she dug down about 3 feet. Water began seeping into the hole. Brackish, muddy, but water. She used her shamag, the tactical scarf every desert operator carried, to filter the worst sediment, then drank carefully, letting her body absorb the moisture slowly rather than gulping it down. It tasted terrible, but it was life. She filled her empty camelback, added purification tablets from her first aid kit, then covered the hole to hide evidence of her presence. Water secured. Next priority, evade pursuit until nightfall. Then reassess. She heard engines approaching. The search parties were expanding their pattern, getting closer. Becca moved up out of the stream bed onto higher ground, where she could observe without being seen. Through the heat shimmer, she counted 6 vehicles, spread out in a loose search line, moving slowly across the desert, stopping periodically to check likely hiding spots. They were systematic, professional, not the undisciplined militia she had hoped for. These were trained soldiers who knew what they were doing. That made things harder, but also more interesting. As the day wore on, the heat became a physical opponent. By early afternoon, the temperature had climbed past 115. Most people would have been incapacitated. Becca had trained for this. Countless hours in desert survival courses, learning to function in conditions that would kill unprepared personnel. She found shade where possible, minimized movement during the hottest hours, stayed hydrated with the water she'd secured, and she watched her pursuers make mistakes. The enemy soldiers were suffering in the heat, taking shortcuts in their search pattern, missing obvious hiding spots because they were focused on getting out of the sun. Their discipline was degrading as the day progressed. By late afternoon, some vehicles had given up active searching, were parked in what little shade they could find, their crews waiting for cooler evening temperatures. That gave Becca an opportunity. One vehicle had parked about 800 meters from her position, its crew sitting in the shade of the truck, drinking water, clearly exhausted from hours of searching in the brutal heat. They'd gotten careless, putting down their weapons, focusing on their own discomfort rather than maintaining vigilance. Becca studied them through her rifle scope, counting personnel, noting their weapons and equipment. 4 soldiers, AK pattern rifles, 1 radio, vehicle-mounted machine gun. She could take them, ambush the position, secure their vehicle and supplies. Maybe even their radio. It would be high risk, but it would also give her resources and mobility she desperately needed. She spent an hour planning the approach, studying every bit of terrain between her position and theirs, plotting her route to minimize exposure, identifying fallback positions if things went wrong. This was what made SEALs different from regular soldiers. The ability to slow down, think tactically, plan every detail before committing to action. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Becca moved. She covered the 800 meters in 30 minutes, using every bit of cover available, moving when their attention was elsewhere, freezing when they looked her direction. By the time she was in position 200 meters from their vehicle, they still had no idea she was there. She settled behind a rock outcropping, steadied her M4 on the natural rest, controlled her breathing. 4 targets. She'd need to take them down before they could respond, before they could radio for help, before they could return effective fire. It would require precision shooting under combat stress, exactly what she'd trained for thousands of times. Target priority, radio operator first, the one with the antenna on his vest, then the soldier closest to the vehicle-mounted machine gun, then the other 2. Fast, efficient, decisive. Becca's finger found the trigger. She exhaled slowly, letting her natural respiratory pause settle her aim. Then she squeezed. The M4 cracked 4 times in rapid succession. Controlled pairs, center mass, exactly as trained. All four enemy soldiers dropped before any of them could react. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 seconds. She waited, weapon trained on the vehicle, watching for movement, ready to engage again if needed. Nothing. All four targets down. She approached cautiously, weapon up, checking each body to confirm they were no longer threats. She felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, just the professional detachment that allowed operators to do what needed to be done. These soldiers had been hunting her, would have captured or killed her given the chance. This was survival, pure and simple. The vehicle yielded a treasure trove of supplies, water, 4 liters in canteens, food, MRE equivalents, ammunition, AK rounds that wouldn't fit her M4 but still useful for understanding enemy loadout, maps showing the enemy's search pattern, and most valuable, a radio. It was on a different frequency than her team's equipment, but it was communication. And communication meant she could potentially call for extraction. Then she found something else. In the personal effects of one soldier, a smartphone, cracked screen, low battery, but functional. She powered it on, found photos, recent photos. One made her blood run cold. It showed Morrison, her teammate, Danny Morrison, meeting with an unknown contact 3 days before the mission. The photo was dated, time-stamped, geotagged. Morrison had met with someone who wasn't American, someone who looked like the soldiers she'd just killed. She scrolled through more photos, found text messages, partially deleted but still recoverable. Her Arabic was limited, but she recognized keywords: American female, SEAL, Hartley. They knew her name, knew her family name. This wasn't random. Then she found the voice message. Listened to it with growing horror. The voice spoke English, accented, professional. Confirm. American female operator. Hartley bloodline. Proceed with evaluation protocol as briefed. Colonel Volkov en route with specialist team. Hartley bloodline. They knew her grandfather, knew her family. The ambush wasn't about the mission. It was about her. Becca looked at Morrison's photo again. He'd known. Somehow he'd known this was coming. That's why he'd acted strange before the mission. That's why he'd said goodbye. She keyed the enemy radio, listened to the frequencies. Static, chatter, nothing useful yet. Then a new voice. Clear, calm, speaking English. Attention American operator, I am Colonel Dmitry Volkov, formerly Soviet Spetsnaz, Afghanistan veteran. I commanded search operations against your Delta Force in Tora Bora. I know how you think. I know your grandfather's techniques. I've fought men he trained. This game ends tomorrow. Run or fight. The choice is yours. But know that I respect your skill, and I will find you. The radio went silent. Becca stared at it for a long moment. Then she keyed the transmit button. Colonel Volkov, Staff Sergeant Hartley, U.S. Navy SEALs. You want to hunt? Let's make it interesting. Come find me. She released the button, grabbed the supplies she could carry, left everything else. Then she disappeared into the desert. 4 enemy soldiers dead, 14 rounds expended, 106 remaining. Water for 2 days, food for 3, and a hunter who knew her grandfather's tactics coming after her. The sun was setting, painting the desert in blood red and gold. Somewhere in the distance, she heard helicopters. American. Too far away to signal, too far away to help. But they were looking. That meant her team had reported her missing. That meant someone was trying to find her. She just had to survive long enough to be found. Becca looked at the smartphone one more time. At Morrison's photo. Trust no one, Granddad had said. In denied territory, trust your training. Trust your gut. Trust nothing else. Morrison had been compromised. That much was clear. But had he been a traitor, or had someone forced him in Webb? Had Webb known? Was that why he'd warned her? Too many questions. Not enough answers. What she knew for certain, this mission had been compromised from the start. Someone had wanted her isolated, alone, vulnerable. They'd gotten their wish. Now she'd make them regret it. Hour 6, the waterhole had saved her life. But water alone wouldn't keep her alive. Becca crouched in the shadow of a rock formation, watching the enemy's search pattern evolve. 6 vehicles had become 8. The professionals were calling in reinforcements. They'd found her Humvee, found the bodies of the 4 soldiers she'd killed. Now they knew they weren't hunting a desperate survivor. They were hunting a killer. The sun climbed higher, temperature pushing past 110, 115, the kind of heat that made steel too hot to touch, the kind that cooked the air itself. Most soldiers would have sought shelter. Waited for evening, Becca moved, because Granddad had taught her something the enemy didn't know. A technique from 1951, Korea, when American pilots got shot down over the north and had to survive in hostile mountains with winter cold that killed as fast as desert heat. Move during the worst conditions. When the enemy thinks no one can operate, that's when you're safest. That's when they're not looking. She paralleled the search line, staying 400 meters out, using the heat shimmer as concealment. The distortion made visual acquisition nearly impossible beyond 200 meters. Technology would help them. Thermal imaging, drones. But thermal worked both ways. She'd taken the poncho liner from her pack, covered herself during movement. The material disrupted her heat signature just enough, made her blend with the sun-scorched rocks. Old school, low-tech, exactly what Granddad would have done. The enemy vehicles passed within 300 meters. Never saw her. She smiled despite the heat, despite the danger. Thank you, Granddad, still teaching me, even now. By noon, she'd circled behind the search line, found what she was looking for, a supply vehicle, parked in the shade of an outcropping, 2 soldiers guarding it, but guarding it poorly. They sat in the shade, drinking water, smoking cigarettes, weapons propped against the truck, complacent, tired, human. Becca settled into a shooting position 300 meters out. Elevated ground, solid rest. The M4 wasn't a precision rifle, but at 300 meters with quality ammunition and a good shooter, it was plenty accurate. She controlled her breathing, let her heart rate settle, waited for the wind to still. Both targets were stationary, unaware, perfect. She squeezed the trigger twice. 2 shots, 2 seconds apart, 2 bodies dropping. The sound reached them before the bullets did. They never knew what hit them. She waited 5 minutes, watching for response, for backup, for any sign the shots had been heard. Nothing. The desert swallowed sound, especially suppressed fire from distance. She approached the vehicle, cleared it, confirmed both targets were down. The truck held more than supplies. It held intelligence. Maps, detailed, showing not just the search pattern, but enemy positions for 50 kilometers in every direction. Communication logs, radio frequencies, call signs, and something else. A laptop, military grade, powered on, screen showing an email client. Most of it was in Arabic, but some messages were in English. One caught her attention immediately. Subject line, Hartley evaluation. Phase 1 complete. She opened it, read it twice to make sure she understood. Colonel Volkov's subject has eliminated 6 hostiles in first 12 hours. Demonstrates advanced field craft and tactical awareness consistent with Hartley family training. Grandfather's techniques evident in water procurement, thermal evasion, and target selection. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2 direct engagement. Subject must demonstrate combat effectiveness against peer opponents before recruitment consideration. Network command authorizes capture alive if possible. Termination only if capture not feasible. Confirm Morrison asset is prepared for sacrifice play per original protocol. Recruitment Phase 2. Morrison asset prepared for sacrifice. This wasn't just revenge for her grandfather's Gulf War operation. They were testing her, evaluating her. For what? She scrolled through more emails, found fragments, references to something called the network. Post-Soviet intelligence apparatus, still operating, still active, recruiting Western operators who'd been burned by their own governments. Another email mentioning her grandfather specifically. Colonel Hartley eliminated network leadership element in 1991. 6 GRU specialists neutralized. But Hartley refused recruitment offer before engagement. Demonstrated loyalty to U.S. despite mistreatment post-Desert Storm. Granddaughter may prove more pragmatic given current U.S. military climate regarding female operators. Becca stared at the screen. They'd tried to recruit Granddad, he'd refused. So they tried to kill him. Now they were trying again. with her and Morrison, Danny Morrison, her teammate, her friend. He was an asset, being prepared for sacrifice. She thought about his strange behavior before the mission. His goodbye that wasn't a goodbye. He knew. Somehow Morrison knew he was compromised, knew he was being used, and he'd gone on the mission anyway. Why? She copied the emails to a thumb drive from her kit, shut down the laptop, loaded the vehicle with everything useful. Water, 10 liters now. Food, enough for a week. Ammunition. Still couldn't use the AK rounds, but she took them anyway. Denial of resources to the enemy, medical supplies, fresh bandages, antibiotics, pain medication, and the radio, another one. This time with encryption capability. She set charges on the vehicle, timed fuses, 30 minutes. Then she moved. 800 meters away, she stopped. Watched the truck explode. Secondary detonations as ammunition cooked off. The blast would draw every enemy unit 4 kilometers. They'd find 2 dead soldiers, a destroyed supply vehicle, no trail leading away, like a ghost had struck and vanished. Exactly the reputation she wanted to build, because psychological warfare was 90% of desert combat. Granddad had taught her that, along with everything else. Hour 18. The sun was descending, temperature finally dropping below 100. Becca had found shelter in a cave system, natural formations carved by ancient water flow. Cool, concealed, defensible. She checked it thoroughly before settling in. No snakes, no scorpions, no previous inhabitants. Just rock and shadow and blessed coolness after the brutal heat. She drank water, ate an MRE, tended her injuries. The crash had left her with cracked ribs, deep bruising across her left side, minor lacerations from broken glass, nothing that would kill her, but enough to slow her down, enough to hurt. She wrapped her ribs with an elastic bandage from the first aid kit, took ibuprofen for the pain and inflammation. Then she settled in to monitor the radio. The enemy frequency crackled with activity, angry, confused, frightened. They'd found the supply vehicle, found the bodies. Now they were reporting to someone who responded in English. That voice, calm, professional, dangerous. Colonel Volkov, understood. AIDIT confirmed KIA in 18 hours. Subject demonstrates operational capability exceeding initial assessment. Request permission to deploy specialist team. The response came from a different voice. Older. Authority, permission granted. But Colonel, remember the objective. We want Hartley alive. She's worth more to us as an asset than a corpse. Volkov's response was measured. Understood, Ashwan, but she's her grandfather's student. James Hartley nearly killed me in 1991. I won't underestimate his bloodline. Then Volkov switched to the open channel, speaking English. Knowing she was listening, attention, American operator, I know you're monitoring this frequency. I know you've heard the truth now. We don't want to kill you, Rebecca. We want to offer you what we offered your grandfather 33 years ago. A pause, then he continued. Your grandfather was magnificent. February 1991. He infiltrated our position with a 4-man team. Eliminated 6 Soviet advisors coordinating Iraqi chemical weapons deployment. I was the 7th. He put a round through my shoulder. Could have killed me. Should have killed me. But he didn't. He pulled me from a burning building. Gave me first aid. Then he said something I've never forgotten. Volkov's voice carried weight. Memory. He said, Colonel, we're enemies by circumstance, not by choice. Soldiers can still choose honor. Then he offered me recruitment. Said the network would value my skills. Good pay. No political oversight. Just professional work for professional soldiers. I asked why he thought I'd betray my country. He said, because your country will betray you first. They already have. We both know it. Another pause. Your grandfather was right. The Soviet Union collapsed 6 months later. My government abandoned us, left us without pensions, without support. The network kept its promises, gave us purpose. Your grandfather refused the same offer, stayed loyal to America. And how did America reward him? Classified his Gulf War service, denied him medals, buried his accomplishments. Now it's your turn, Rebecca. You've proven yourself these last 18 hours. 8 kills, 0 casualties. Operational excellence under impossible conditions. We can offer you what your country won't: recognition, resources, freedom to operate without politicians second-guessing every decision. Or you can refuse, like your grandfather, and we'll hunt you, kill you, bury you in this desert. Your choice. You have until dawn. The radio went silent. Becca sat in the darkness of the cave, processing what she'd heard. Volkov knew Granddad had fought him, had been spared by him. Now he was offering her the same recruitment pitch and threatening her life if she refused. She thought about her grandfather, about the photo Webb had shown her, about the missing face cut from the image. That had been Volkov, the one who escaped, the one who'd carried a grudge for 33 years. She checked the smartphone she'd taken from the earlier kill. Still had battery, 10%. Scrolled through Morrison's photos again. Found something she'd missed before, a video file, dated 2 days before the mission. She played it, volume low. Morrison's face filled the screen. He looked tired, scared. His voice was barely a whisper. Becca, if you're watching this, it means things went bad. Means I'm probably dead or captured. I need you to know the truth. He glanced off camera, like someone might be listening. 6 months ago, they approached me, showed me photos of my sister, my nephews, said if I didn't cooperate, my family would disappear. I didn't have a choice. They made me carry a tracker in my gear, made me report on team movements, made me compromise the mission. But I told Webb 2 months ago. We went to Reynolds. She contacted Oni. Naval Intelligence. They said use it, run a counter operation, draw out the network. Morrison's eyes were wet, but his voice stayed steady. This whole mission was bait. The HVT was real. But the primary objective was you. Draw out Volkov, make him commit forces, get evidence of network operations. You're not bait because you're expendable. You're bait because you're the best. Because Webb said if anyone could survive alone in hostile territory while we positioned assets for extraction, it's you, your grandfather's student, the one who learned the old ways. I volunteered to be the sacrificial piece, the one they'd focus on if they captured someone. Webb wanted to take my place, but I said no. I got my family into this. I get them out. He wiped his eyes. If you survive, tell my sister I'm sorry. Tell her I died doing something that mattered. And Becca, trust Webb. He knows everything. He's been hunting this network since 1991, since they tried to kill your grandfather. This is bigger than one mission, bigger than one team. Your grandfather started a war against these people. Webb continued it. Now it's your turn to finish it. Stay alive, complete the mission, and make these bastards pay for what they did to good soldiers like your grandfather. Like Webb, like me. The video ended. Becca sat in the darkness. Morrison had known, had volunteered, had sacrificed himself to protect her, to protect the mission. And Webb, Master Chief Marcus Webb, the grizzled veteran who'd watched her back since day one. He'd been hunting the network for decades. This whole operation had been a trap, but not for her, for them. She was the bait, but bait with teeth. The phone battery died, screen going dark, but Becca had what she needed, the truth. Morrison was a hero, not a traitor. Webb was playing a long game, decades long, and she was the key piece on the board. Time to prove Webb's faith was justified. Hour 30. Becca moved through the night like a shadow. The enemy had adapted, deployed thermal drones, night vision, patrol patterns that covered more ground. But they were still thinking conventionally, still assuming she'd run, hide, wait for rescue. They didn't understand what her grandfather had taught her. When you're outnumbered, you don't defend. You attack. You make the enemy react to you. You control the tempo. She'd identified 3 targets. First, a patrol base, temporary, 4 vehicles, 12 soldiers, command and control node for the search operation. Second, a logistics convoy, moving supplies to forward positions, vulnerable during movement. Third, Volkov's personal command vehicle. She'd identified it by the antenna array. Heavy security. But security meant predictable patterns. Tonight she'd hit the patrol base, cut the head off the snake, disrupt their coordination, make them afraid. The approach took 2 hours, slow crawling through rock fields, avoiding thermals by staying in naturally cool microterrain, moving only when wind-covered sound. Granddad called it ghost walking, Soviet Spetsnaz technique he'd learned from captured enemy operators in Afghanistan. Move like water, flow around obstacles, leave no trace. By midnight, she was in position, 200 meters from the patrol base, elevated, good fields of fire. She counted sentries, identified the command tent by the light inside, noted the fuel storage, the ammunition, the weak points. Then she went to work. First the sentries, 3 of them, spaced 30 meters apart. She took the farthest one first. Single suppressed shot at 180 meters. Headshot. He dropped without a sound. Waited 5 minutes. No alarm. Second sentry, 200 meters. Same result. Third sentry started to turn, had maybe sensed something wrong. She put 2 rounds center mass. He went down hard. Still no alarm. The suppressor and distance were working. Now for the real show. She'd taken enemy grenades from the supply vehicle earlier. Fragmentation, offensive pattern. She tied them together, created a makeshift satchel charge, set a timer, 60 seconds, lobbed it toward the fuel storage, then settled behind her rifle and waited. The explosion turned night into day, fuel detonating, secondary explosions as ammunition cooked off, vehicles burning, soldiers running, chaos. Becca engaged targets of opportunity, commanders trying to restore order, radio operators trying to call for help, anyone who looked like they knew what they were doing. Methodical, calm, professional, 10 shots, 6 kills, 4 wounded, then she displaced, moving to a secondary position 400 meters away. Behind her, the patrol base burned. Voices screaming in the darkness, trying to understand what happened, who hit them, where the attack came from. They'd find 3 dead sentries, 6 more casualties from the firefight, a destroyed command post, and no evidence of who'd done it, just the ghost. She monitored their radio frequency as she moved away. Panic, confusion, fear. One voice kept repeating the same phrase. The Hartley woman, it has to be the Hartley woman, she's everywhere. How is she everywhere? Becca smiled in the darkness. Psychological warfare, the most effective weapon in the desert. Make them see ghosts. Make them afraid of shadows. Make them hunt phantoms while you hunt them. Hour 42. The logistics convoy moved at dawn. 3 trucks, 2 armed escort vehicles, 20 soldiers total. They thought daylight would protect them, thought they could see threats coming. They were wrong. Becca had positioned herself along their route 6 hours earlier, found a wadi that the road crossed. Perfect ambush position. Granddad called this the Granddad Special, a tactic he'd developed in Iraq. 1991. Let the convoy enter the kill zone, hit the lead vehicle, hit the trail vehicle, trap them in between, then rain hell from elevated positions. Simple, effective, timeless. She'd rigged IEDs from enemy ordnance, placed them at the wadi entrance and exit, daisy-chained them for maximum effect. Now she waited. The convoy approached, cautious but not cautious enough. Lead vehicle entered the wadi. Becca triggered the first IED. The explosion flipped the vehicle, blocked the entrance. Trail vehicle braked hard. Soldiers dismounting, taking defensive positions. She triggered the second IED. Exit blocked. Convoy trapped. Then she opened fire. From 600 meters. Elevated position. Perfect angle. She targeted drivers first, disabled the remaining vehicles, then shifted to soldiers trying to return fire. They couldn't see her. The morning sun was behind her, blinding them, creating glare that made target acquisition impossible. Another old-school technique. Position yourself with the sun at your back. Natural advantage. She fired 20 rounds, took 11 targets, then displaced before they could coordinate a response. Behind her, the convoy burned, survivors calling for help, wounded screaming. She felt nothing, no satisfaction, no remorse. Just the cold calculation of combat. This was war, and in war you did what was necessary to survive, to win, to complete the mission. Morrison had died for this, for her, for the mission. She'd honor that sacrifice by finishing what he'd started. Hour 54, Becca had one more target, the big one. Volkov's command vehicle. She tracked it through radio intercepts, followed its movement pattern, identified where it would be at dusk. Now she stalked it like prey. The vehicle was heavily defended. 8 soldiers, 2 escort Humvees, state-of-the-art communications equipment. Volkov himself was inside. She'd heard his voice on the radio, coordinating the search, trying to regain control after her attacks had shattered their operational tempo. She couldn't take the vehicle head-on. Too much firepower. Too many guns. But she didn't need to. She just needed to make him afraid. At sunset, the command vehicle stopped, set up a temporary position on high ground. Good defensive terrain. Professional. Smart. Exactly what she'd expect from a Soviet Spetsnaz veteran. But professionals had patterns, and patterns could be exploited. Becca circled to the north, used the setting sun for concealment, got within 400 meters. She could see Volkov through her scope. Older man, maybe mid-60s, scarred face, military bearing. He stood outside the vehicle, smoking a cigarette, studying maps. She could take the shot, drop him right now, end this, but something stopped her. Maybe it was his posture, the way he carried himself, like a soldier who'd seen too much, done too much, survived too much. Like Granddad must have looked at that age. Professional respect between warriors, even enemies. She keyed the radio instead. Enemy frequency. Colonel Volkov. Staff Sergeant Hartley. I have you in my scope. 400 meters. Headshot is easy from this range. She saw him stiffen, his hand moving toward his weapon. But you gave my grandfather a chance in 1991. Professional courtesy. So I'm giving you one now. You said I have until dawn to decide, to accept your recruitment offer. Here's my decision. Go to hell. I'm not my grandfather. I'm not interested in your network, your money, your freedom from political oversight. I'm a United States Navy SEAL. I serve my country. Not because they always treat me right, not because they always recognize my service, but because it's the right thing to do. My grandfather taught me that. Taught me that loyalty matters, that honor matters, that some things are worth fighting for even when it's hard. So here's what happens next. I'm going to keep hunting your people, keep killing your soldiers, keep destroying your operations, and you're going to keep trying to catch me because that's your job. That's what you've been ordered to do. But know this, every man you send after me is another man who won't go home. Every vehicle you commit is another asset you'll lose. I'm not trapped out here with you, Colonel. You're trapped out here with me. She released the transmit button. Through the scope, she saw Volkov smile, a tired, resigned smile. He keyed his radio. Your grandfather said almost the same thing, February 1991, when he had me at gunpoint. He said some men fight for money, some for power. But the dangerous ones, they fight for something they believe in. And you can't buy them, can't threaten them, can't break them. You're dangerous, Rebecca Hartley, like he was. I respect that. But respect doesn't change my orders. We will find you. We will capture you, or we will kill you. That's the reality of this situation. His voice changed, became almost sad. Your grandfather was magnificent, a worthy opponent. It was an honor to fight him. It will be an honor to fight you. Until dawn. Staff Sergeant. Becca watched him walk back into the command vehicle. She could still take the shot, could end him right now. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was to survive, to gather intelligence, to expose the network. Killing Volkov would feel good, but it wouldn't accomplish the mission. So she displaced, melted back into the desert, leaving Volkov alive, leaving him wondering, leaving him off balance. Psychological warfare. The old ways. Hour 66. Becca heard the helicopters before she saw them. American. Definitely American. The distinctive thump of Black Hawk rotors. They were searching. Far to the west, maybe 10 kilometers out. Her team, looking for her. She pulled out the signal mirror, Granddad's mirror from Korea, the one he'd carried in Desert Storm. Started flashing it toward the helicopters. Morse code, SOS, American operator, coordinates, again and again, hoping they had sensors that could pick up the reflection. The helicopters changed course, started moving toward her position. She felt hope surge, real hope. For the first time in 3 days, rescue was coming. Then she heard the other sound. Engines, lots of them. From the east, enemy vehicles moving fast. They'd seen the helicopters too, figured out what the Americans were looking for. They were racing to get to her first. Becca grabbed her M4, checked her ammunition. 3 magazines left, 90 rounds. She'd burned through 30 in the guerrilla attacks, used every round to maximum effect. Now she might need every bullet she had left. She found defensible terrain, a rocky hilltop with good sight lines, 360-degree visibility, popped orange smoke, marked her position for the helicopters, then settled behind her rifle and waited. The helicopters were coming from the west. 4 minutes out, maybe 5. The enemy vehicles were coming from the east. Closer. 2 minutes, maybe less. It was going to be close. The first enemy Humvee crested the ridge 400 meters out, machine gun already firing in her direction. Becca returned fire. Controlled bursts, aimed shots, dropped the gunner, transitioned to the driver. The vehicle swerved, crashed into rocks. Disabled. Second vehicle, different angle, 200 meters, closing fast. She engaged, burned through half a magazine, killed the driver. The vehicle careened sideways. Third vehicle, fourth, fifth. They kept coming. She kept firing. But the ammunition was running out. 60 rounds left, 50, 40. The helicopters were 3 minutes out. She could see them now. 2 Blackhawks, door guns already engaging enemy positions. But 3 minutes was an eternity in combat. Enemy soldiers were dismounting, taking cover, setting up a perimeter. They knew they couldn't let her escape. Knew this was their last chance. Becca dropped to her last magazine. 30 rounds, she rationed each shot, made every bullet count. 28 rounds, 25, 20. The Blackhawks were 1 minute out, rockets streaking toward enemy positions, door guns hammering, Apache gunships appearing over the ridge, adding their firepower. 15 rounds left. Then she heard a voice on the emergency frequency, the radio she'd taken from the enemy supply vehicle. Falcon 27, this is Reaper 51. Authenticate Golf Whiskey Niner. She grabbed the radio, keyed it. Reaper. Falcon 27. Authentication. India Romeo 15. Immediate response. No hesitation. Correct codes. Good copy Falcon. We see your smoke. Coming in hot. Heavy enemy presence. Get ready to move. 1 Black Hawk set down 50 meters from her position. Rotors kicking up sand and debris. Door gunner laying down suppressive fire. The crew chief was waving frantically, screaming something lost in the rotor wash. Becca grabbed her rifle, sprinted for the helicopter. Enemy rounds kicking up sand around her feet, bullets cracking past her head. She dove through the open door, hands grabbed her, pulled her aboard. The Black Hawk lifted, banking hard, gaining altitude. Apache escorts engaging enemy positions below. We got you, we got you, the crew chief was shouting, grinning like they'd just won the lottery. 3 days, Sergeant. We thought you were dead. She couldn't respond. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard. 3 days of stress and survival catching up with her all at once. She just nodded, slumped against the vibrating deck. Let the helicopter carry her towards safety. Through the open door, she could see the desert falling away below, the enemy vehicles scattered and burning. Apache rockets finding targets. Then something else, another vehicle. Larger, the command vehicle. Volkov's vehicle. It sat on a ridgeline, not moving, not engaging, just watching. Through the case. Through the smoke and fire and destruction. Watching her escape, she thought she saw a figure standing beside it. Older man, scarred face, raising a hand, not in surrender, not in threat, in salute. Professional respect, warrior to warrior, like Granddad had shown him in 1991. Then the helicopter banked and the image was gone. Falcon 27, this is Reaper 51. You're secure, ETA-friendly territory, 15 minutes. Medical standing by. Another voice came on the radio. Familiar, gruff, relieved. Falcon 27, Master Chief Webb. Damn good to hear your voice, kid. Your grandfather would be proud. She found her voice. Raw from dehydration and 3 days of silence. Hard to kill, Chief. SEALs don't quit. No, we don't. Webb's voice carried weight. Emotion. And you just proved it. What you did out there, kid, it's going to be studied. You turned a disaster into a tactical masterclass. The crew chief handed her water. She drank slowly, let her body absorb it. Through the window, she watched the desert pass beneath them. The hostile territory that had tried to kill her, that had tested her, that had proven what her grandfather had always known. The old ways still worked. Technology failed, equipment broke, plans fell apart. But training endured. Will endured. The warrior spirit endured. Granddad had survived that desert in 1991, had fought Volkov and lived. Webb had survived it in multiple deployments, had hunted the network for decades. Now she'd survived it too. Not through luck, through skill, through knowledge passed down from warrior to warrior, from grandfather to granddaughter, from mentor to student. The old ways, the ones that never died. Because some truths were timeless. And in the desert, truth was all that mattered. The Black Hawk carried her towards safety, toward debriefing, toward whatever came next. But Becca knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't over. Morrison had died to expose the network, to give her a chance to finish what Granddad started. Webb had been hunting them for 33 years. And Volkov, Colonel Dmitry Volkov, the man who'd fought her grandfather and lived, who'd offered recruitment and been refused, who'd saluted her escape with professional respect. He was still out there, still operational, still dangerous. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning. And this time Rebecca Hartley would be ready, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all, not from SEAL training, not from modern warfare doctrine, from her grandfather, from the old ways. Some wars last longer than one lifetime. Some missions span generations. And some enemies become worthy of respect, even as you destroy them. The helicopter banked toward friendly territory. Behind her, the desert burned. Ahead, the real battle waited. The Black Hawk crew chief handed Becca a headset. His face was grim. Staff Sergeant, we've got a problem. Fuel leak. Port side tank. We're not making it to friendly territory. How long? 5 minutes, maybe less. We need to set down. Now. Through the window, Becca saw the second Black Hawk paralleling their flight. The Apache escorts flanking wide. Professional formation. Combat spacing. But professional didn't mean safe. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Crew, we're going down controlled. Rocky terrain ahead. Brace for impact. The helicopter descended fast. Too fast. The kind of landing that broke ankles and compressed spines if you weren't ready. Becca grabbed the overhead strap, bent her knees. Let her SEAL training take over. The Black Hawk hit hard, bounced once, settled with a grinding screech of tortured metal. Everyone out. The crew chief was already moving, door guns traversing, scanning for threats. Becca tumbled out, M4 up, clearing sectors. They'd landed in a boulder field, good defensive terrain, but exposed from elevated positions. The second Black Hawk set down 30 meters away. Apache gunships circling overhead. Weapons hot, the pilot keyed his radio. All stations, this is Reaper 51. We're down but secure, requesting immediate QRF and heavy lift for extraction. The response came back broken, garbled. Reaper, heavy jamming, negative on QRF, enemy. Your pies, then static. Communications were down. They were isolated. Again, the crew chief looked at Becca. Young kid, maybe 25. How many rounds you got left, Sergeant? She checked her magazines. 15 in the current mag, 2 empty magazines. I'm Winchester. What have you got? 4 mags. 200 rounds for the M4. The door guns got maybe 300 belted. The second bird's got more. But if we get hit hard, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. Becca scanned the terrain. This was bad ground for a defense. Too many angles. Too much exposure. Then she heard them. Engines, multiple vehicles, converging from 2 directions. The enemy hadn't given up. They tracked the helicopters. Followed them down. Staff Sergeant Ed, the pilot, was looking at her. You're the ground combat expert here. What do? We set up overlapping fields of fire, use the helicopters as hard cover, conserve ammunition, make every shot count, And we hold until reinforcements arrive or we run out of bullets. And if we run out, she chambered a round in her M4. Then we fight with what's left. The enemy vehicles appeared, 4 of them, technical trucks with mounted weapons, armed soldiers dismounting, taking positions, professional, coordinated, dangerous. Then a 5th vehicle arrived, larger, command variant. Becca recognized it through her scope, the antenna array, the armored plating, Volkov's vehicle. He'd followed her. Personally, the vehicle stopped 400 meters out, beyond effective rifle range for most shooters, but not all shooters. Becca settled behind a boulder, rested her M4, found her breathing. She could take the shot, could drop whoever exited that command vehicle. Her finger found the trigger, started to apply pressure. Then a voice boomed across the desert, amplified by a loudspeaker. Speaking English, Staff Sergeant on Rebecca Hartley, Colonel Dmitry Volkov. I request parley, under white flag, as officers and soldiers. The crew chief looked at her. That's him, the guy who's been hunting you, yeah. You gonna shoot him? Should. She kept her scope on the vehicle, but something stopped her. The same thing that had stopped her grandfather in 1991. Professional respect. Warrior to warrior. She lowered her weapon, stood up. The crew chief grabbed her arm. Sergeant, this could be a trap. Probably is. But if he wanted us dead, he'd have hit us already. He wants to talk. She checked her sidearm, made sure it was loaded. Guess I'll find out. Becca walked out from cover, hands visible, weapon lowered but ready. Across 400 meters of open ground, a figure emerged from the command vehicle. Older man, military bearing, guard face visible even at this distance. Colonel Dmitry Volkov, former Soviet Spetsnaz, the man who'd fought her grandfather and lived. They walked toward each other, stopped at 50 meters, close enough to talk, far enough to react if things went wrong. Volkov was in his late 60s, gray hair, hard eyes, the kind of weathered face that spoke of decades in the field. He wore no uniform, just fatigues and a tactical vest, a sidearm on his hip. He looked tired. You came alone, Becca said. That's bold or foolish. Volkov's English carried a slight Russian accent, but his words were precise. Your grandfather taught me something about boldness. February 1991. He walked into our position with 3 men against 20. That was bold. You survived. Because he allowed it. Volkov pulled out a photograph. Worn, creased, showed a younger version of himself in Soviet uniform, standing with a team of men. All dead now, he said. Your grandfather killed them. Clean, professional, as soldiers should die. Then he found me in a burning building. Shoulder shot, bleeding out. He pulled me from the flames, gave me first aid. Then he made an offer. Recruitment. To your network. Volkov nodded. He said talented soldiers like me were wasted serving politicians who would abandon us. Said the network valued skill over nationality. Offered money, resources, freedom. You refused. Volkov smiled. A sad smile. No, I accepted. 3 months later, when Soviet Union collapsed and my government left us without pensions, without support, the network kept its promises. Your grandfather was right. They did value me. Then why did you try to kill him? I didn't. Volkov's face hardened. The network did. Because he'd refused them. Because he knew too much. Because men like your grandfather were dangerous. They couldn't be bought. Couldn't be controlled. He pulled out another photograph. Showed Colonel James Hartley. Desert camouflage. Iraq, 1991. I carried this for 33 years, not as trophy, as reminder that some men fight for things money cannot buy, that honor still exists, even in ugly wars. Your grandfather spared me because he believed soldiers could choose honor over hate. I've spent 3 decades trying to prove him right. Becca studied the old warrior. You've been hunting me for 3 days. Killed Morrison, nearly killed my whole team. Morrison volunteered. Volkov's voice was gentle. He knew he was compromised, knew his family was threatened, chose to sacrifice himself to expose the network. That's honor, and you, what's your choice? Volkov reached into his vest, moved slowly, deliberately, pulled out an encrypted thumb drive. This contains everything. 33 years of network operations, names, locations, bank accounts, evidence of crimes spanning 3 continents, enough to destroy them completely. He held it out. I can't give this to my own government. I'm too deep, too compromised. They'd kill me before I could testify. But you, American SEAL, clean hands, you can take this to your people, end what your grandfather started. Why Becca didn't reach for the drive? Why betray them now because I'm 67 years old? I've served evil men long enough. He looked at the desert around them. This place, it reminds me of Afghanistan. 1986, I was young, believed in something, thought I was fighting for my country. Then I learned the truth. Politicians lie, governments betray, but soldiers keep their word. Your grandfather kept his word, gave me a chance when he should have killed me. I've owed that debt for 33 years. Now I pay it. To his granddaughter. He tossed the drive. It landed at Becca's feet. Take it. Finish what he started. Destroy the network. Free the soldiers they've trapped in service. And you, what happens to you, Volkov smiled. I report you dead. Killed in helicopter explosion. No survivors. The network will believe me. I've never failed them before. They'll kill you when they find out the truth. Probably, but that's my choice, my honor to reclaim. He looked at her with those hard, tired eyes. Your grandfather taught me that soldiers can choose redemption, even after decades of mistakes. This is my choice. Becca picked up the drive, examined it. Tell me about him, about that night in 1991. Volkov's expression softened. Your grandfather was magnificent. He moved through our position like a ghost. We had thermal imaging, motion sensors, Claymore mines. He bypassed everything. When he entered the building where we were coordinating, I thought he was death itself. Suppressed weapon, night vision, perfect execution. He killed my team in 30 seconds. Then he found me, put his pistol to my head. I waited for the shot. Instead, Booty said, Colonel, I'm going to give you a choice because soldiers deserve choices. What choice? Die with honor or live with purpose? He said the network would value me. Said talented soldiers shouldn't be wasted serving corrupt governments. Said if I survived this war, I should find them. Use my skills for something that mattered. Then he pulled me from the building before the airstrike hit, left me with field dressing and morphine, disappeared into the desert. I've never forgotten, never stopped owing that debt. Now I pay it, because your grandfather believed in honor between enemies. And I'll be damned if I prove him wrong. Volkov keyed his radio. Command, this is Volkov. Target eliminated. Helicopter explosion confirmed. No American survivors. Recommend terminating operation. He looked at Becca. You have maybe 10 minutes before they verify. My men will create a diversion. Shape charges on the helicopters. Make it look real. Use that time. Get your people to safety. Get that drive to your command. End this. Becca started to turn. Stopped. Colonel, my grandfather, did he ever say why he spared you? Volkov nodded. He said, Colonel Volkov, you're a good soldier in a bad war. I won't add your death to the waste. Then he said something else. Something I've remembered every day since. What? Take care of your people, Colonel. Real warriors protect those who cannot protect themselves. Remember that. When this war ends and you have to choose what kind of man to be, he paused. Your grandfather was right about everything. I've just been too proud to admit it until now. Becca saluted, sharp, clean, the kind of salute one warrior gives another. Volkov returned it. Perfect Soviet military precision. Then he smiled. Tell Master Chief Webb that Dmitry Volkov sends his regards. Tell him some of us can be redeemed. Even after 33 years, explosions rocked the desert. Volkov's men detonating charges. Go now. Becca ran, back to the helicopters, where the crew was already preparing for emergency extraction. The Apache escorts swooped in, cables descending, harnesses being attached. We're lifting your birds out, the pilot shouted. Get strapped in. 3 minutes later, both Black Hawks were airborne, slung beneath Apaches, flying toward friendly territory. Behind them, the desert burned, smoke rising from controlled explosions, making it look real, making the network believe she was dead. Through the window, Becca saw Volkov's command vehicle, still sitting on the ridge, a solitary figure standing beside it, old warrior watching them escape. Then he raised his hand, one final salute, professional respect, across decades, across wars, across every boundary that should have made them enemies. Some debts transcend everything. Becca clutched the encrypted drive, felt its weight. Morrison had died for this. Volkov had betrayed everything he'd known for this. And Granddad. Granddad had started this war 33 years ago. Now it was her turn to finish it. 6 months later, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, California. Master Chief Petty Officer Rebecca Hartley sat in the debriefing room. Captain Catherine Reynolds placed a folder on the table. Volkov's intelligence led to 47 arrests across 12 countries. Network leadership dismantled. Operations disrupted. Hundreds of compromised soldiers freed from blackmail. Reynolds paused. Petty Officer Morrison has been posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. His family wanted you to have this. Becca opened the folder. Found a letter. Morrison's handwriting. Becca, if you're reading this, I didn't make it. That's okay, I made my peace with it. I was compromised, threatened, used. But Webb gave me a choice. Be a victim or be a volunteer. I chose volunteer because some things matter more than one life. The network had to be exposed, stopped, destroyed. Your grandfather started that fight. Webb continued it. Now you're finishing it. That's what warriors do. We fight battles that span generations. We sacrifice for people we'll never meet. We choose honor even when it costs everything. Tell my sister I died for something that mattered. Tell my nephews their uncle was a SEAL, and SEALs never quit. Take care of yourself, Becca. You're one of the good ones. Fair winds and following seas. Danny Morrison, Petty Officer, U.S. Navy SEALs. Becca folded the letter carefully. When's the ceremony? 3 weeks. Reynolds pulled out another file. There's something else. We're establishing a new training program, Advanced SEER, Desert Survival, based on your grandfather's techniques. We want you to run it, me. You survived 72 hours using methods most modern operators have never seen. Korean War water procurement, Soviet counter-tracking, Gulf War psychological warfare. Reynolds leaned forward. Your grandfather taught Webb. Webb taught you. Now you teach others. That's the legacy. Master Chief Webb entered, retired now but still involved as civilian advisor. It's what he'd want, kid. Pass it on. Make sure these techniques don't die with our generation. Becca thought about Granddad, about Morrison's sacrifice, about the long war that had finally ended. Okay, I'll do it. 3 weeks later, Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, San Diego. Morrison's memorial service drew hundreds. SEALs, Navy brass, his family. Becca stood beside his sister, held her hand while the honor guard fired the 21-gun salute. The flag was folded, presented to Morrison's sister. She clutched it like a lifeline. Then it was Becca's turn to speak. She approached the memorial. Morrison's photograph in the dress uniform, young, smiling, full of life. Petty Officer Danny Morrison was my teammate, my friend, my brother in arms. He died completing a mission that saved lives and destroyed an enemy network that had operated for 3 decades. But he didn't die as a victim. He died as a volunteer, as a warrior who chose sacrifice over safety. Her voice caught. She pushed through. Danny Morrison embodied everything that makes SEALs special. Not the weapons, not the tactics, but the willingness to do what's necessary, to pay any price, to face any enemy, because some missions matter more than one life. She placed Morrison's trident on the memorial, the SEAL insignia gleaming in the sunlight. Then she placed a second trident, older, worn, from 1991, her grandfather's. This belonged to Colonel James Hartley, Gulf War veteran, the man who started the fight that Danny Morrison finished. Grandfather Danny, you're together now. Watch over each other. Watch over all of us still fighting. We'll finish what you started. We'll honor your sacrifice. We'll make sure future warriors know your names. Fair winds and following seas, brothers. Until Valhalla. She stepped back, saluted, held it until the honor guard finished their sequence. Webb was beside her. The old SEAL had tears in his eyes. Good words, kid. They'd both be proud. Morrison's sister approached, hugged Becca tight. Thank you for bringing him home, for honoring him. Danny told me about you. Said you were the real deal. Said if anyone could survive what you went through, it was you. He believed in you. So did your grandfather. So does the chief. Don't waste it. Becca nodded, unable to speak. Later, as the sun set over the Pacific Web and Becca stood at the cemetery overlook, below them, rows of white headstones. Thousands of warriors who'd given everything. You ready for this? Webb asked. Teaching the next generation, I don't know. I'm an operator, not an instructor. Your grandfather was both. I'm both. You will be too. Webb looked at the sunset. You know what he told me once about teaching what he said? Marcus, we don't teach tactics, we teach mindset. Tactics change every decade, but the warrior mindset, that's eternal. He paused. You've got that mindset, kid. You proved it. 72 hours alone in hell, 17 kills, 0 quit. Now you pass it on. Make sure these techniques survive another generation. That's how warriors live forever, not in statues or medals, in the students who carry their knowledge forward. 1 month later, Naval Special Warfare Center, first day of instruction. Master Chief Rebecca Hartley stood before a class of SEAL candidates, 120 of them, men and women, all exhausted from months of brutal training, all wondering what fresh hell this course would bring. She looked at their faces, saw herself years earlier, young, uncertain, wondering if she belonged. Good morning, I'm Master Chief Hartley. You're here because you've completed basic SEAL training. You think you know survival. You don't. Not yet. She clicked to her first slide. Showed desert terrain. Harsh. Unforgiving. Deadly. My grandfather, Colonel James Hartley, served in the Gulf War. He learned desert survival from Korean War veterans. Techniques developed in the 1950s that kept American pilots alive behind enemy lines. He taught those techniques to Master Chief Webb in 2005. Webb taught them to me. Now I'm teaching you. Why? Because 20 years from now, you'll face situations we can't predict, technologies we haven't invented, enemies we don't know. But the desert will still be the desert. Heat will still kill in 12 hours. Dehydration will still shut down your brain. Fear will still cloud your judgment. These techniques work because they're based on human truth, not human invention. She clicked to the next slide, showed her after extraction, battered, exhausted, alive. Let me tell you about the time I got left behind in hostile territory. 72 hours, no water, no comms, enemy battalion hunting me. Let me show you how I survived using techniques older than your parents. Let me teach you what my grandfather taught me, what Korean War pilots taught him, what every warrior who survived impossible odds learned the hard way. Technology fails, electronics break, plans fall apart. But training endures, will endures, the warrior spirit endures. She paused. Let the words sink in. Some of you are thinking, this is outdated. We have GPS, satellite phones, drones. You're right, until you don't. Until the batteries die. Until the enemy jams your signals. Until you're alone with nothing but your knife and your training. Then you'll remember this course. And you'll survive. Because SEALs don't quit. We adapt. We overcome. We find a way. Always. A hand went up. Young woman, maybe 25, looked determined. Master Chief, how do we know these techniques still work? Becca smiled. Because I used them 6 months ago, every single one. And I'm standing here. The enemy who hunted me isn't. That's how we know. Now, let's get to work. 3 years later, observation room, Naval Special Warfare Center. Master Chief Rebecca Hartley watched a monitor, showed desert terrain, a female SEAL candidate, alone, vehicle destroyed, enemy approaching, different operator, same evaluation protocol Becca had survived. Beside her stood Colonel Dmitry Volkov. The old Russian warrior was grayer now, wore civilian contractor credentials, worked for the U.S. government as a SEER consultant. Webb had vouched for him, testified that Volkov's intelligence had saved American lives, that his redemption was genuine. It had taken 2 years of vetting. But eventually the government had agreed. Now he stood beside Becca, watching a new generation learn. She reminds me of you, he said quietly. At that age. Determined, skilled, stubborn. She's good. Becca watched the candidate evade enemy searchers, using terrain, using patience, using everything she'd been taught. Your grandfather would approve. Volkov's accent had faded over the years, but his Russian precision remained. He believed in passing knowledge to worthy students. Is that why you helped me? Because of him, Volkov nodded. I've spent 33 years trying to repay a debt. Your grandfather gave me life, honor, purpose. I gave you the same. The wheel turns. The debt passes forward. The door opened. Master Chief Webb entered. Retired but still watching over Becca like he'd promised her grandfather. How's she doing, the candidate? Good. She'll pass. Becca checked her notes. Another hour she'll find water. 2 more she'll engage her first target. By tomorrow she'll prove she belongs. Like you did, Webb said. Like your granddad did. They watched in silence. 3 warriors. Different generations, different nations, united by shared understanding that some truths transcend time, some skills transcend technology, some values transcend war, honor, duty, sacrifice, the will to survive, the refusal to quit. Those were eternal. The candidate on screen made her move, approached an enemy position, used techniques Becca had taught her, techniques Webb had taught Becca, techniques Granddad had taught Webb, techniques that dated back to Korea, to World War II, to every war where soldiers fought and died and passed their knowledge forward. She's ready, Becca said. Webb keyed the radio. Falcon 73, this is Evaluation Command. You've passed Phase 1. Welcome to the hardest 3 days of your life. The candidate's response came back. Tired but determined. Copy that command. Bring it on. Webb chuckled. Yeah, she's got it. Training Day 3. Arizona Desert. Dawn. Becca knelt beside the same candidate, now on her final evaluation. The young woman had found water, evaded mock enemy forces, eliminated 3 targets with precision shots, exactly like Becca had done 3 years ago. Now came the last test. Navigate 10 miles to extraction point. No GPS, no map, just stars and terrain. The candidate looked exhausted, sunburned, pushed to her limits. Master Chief, I don't know if I can. Becca handed her a compass, Korean War vintage, the same one her grandfather had given her 14 years ago in this exact desert. My grandfather gave me this when I was 15, said it was worth more than any smartphone. He was right. She pointed to the horizon, North Star. Follow it. Trust yourself. You've got the skills. The candidate took the compass, studied it. What if I fail? Then you learn, and you try again. Becca stood. But you won't fail because you're not alone out here. You're carrying everything your instructors taught you, everything warriors before them learned, everything that's kept Americans alive in deserts for 70 years. Trust that. Trust yourself. The candidate nodded. Set off into the desert. Becca watched her disappear into the dawn. Webb approached, stood beside her. You gave her your grandfather's compass. She'll bring it back, just like I did. He smiled. You sound like him. You know that good. That means I'm doing it right. They walked back to the observation vehicle. Volkov was already there, monitoring the candidate's progress on thermal imagery. She's moving well, he said, using terrain like you taught her, your grandfather's techniques. Think she'll make it, Webb asked. Becca looked at the monitor, watched the candidate navigate by stars, move like a ghost, survive. Yeah, she'll make it. Because that's what we teach them, not just tactics, not just techniques. We teach them they can survive anything. That training endures when technology fails. That the warrior spirit never quits. We teach them what matters. 12 hours later, the candidate reached the extraction point, exhausted, dehydrated, sunburned, but successful. Becca was waiting. Welcome to the team's Falcon 73. The candidate saluted. Sharp, clean. Thank you, Master Chief, for teaching me, for believing in me. I didn't teach you to survive. You already had that in you. I just showed you how. She handed back the compass. Keep it. Pass it to the next candidate who needs it. That's how this works. Knowledge passes forward, generation to generation. The candidate looked at the worn compass, at the history it carried. I won't let you down. You already proved you won't. Now go teach someone else. Later that night, Becca's office, Naval Special Warfare Center. She sat alone, looking at photographs on her desk. Grandfather in Gulf War uniform. 1991, Webb and Granddad together. 2005, Morrison, dress uniform. Smiling. Volkov, standing in the desert, saluting, on her desk. Two tridents, one from 1991, one from 3 years ago. Grandfather's and Morrison's. Side by side, watching over her. She touched them gently. Thank you, she whispered. Granddad, Danny, all of you, you taught me. Now I teach others. The knowledge survives. The legacy continues. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Webb. Kid, proud of you. Granddad would be too. You're doing what matters. Teaching the next generation. Keeping the faith. Webb, she smiled, typed back. Thanks, Chief. Couldn't have done it without you. Becca. She turned off the lights, locked her office, walked out into the California night. Above Coronado stars blazed. The same stars her grandfather had used to navigate in the Iraqi desert in 1991. The same stars Korean war pilots had followed home. The same stars that had guided warriors for thousands of years. Technology changed, wars changed, enemies changed, but the stars remained. Eternal, unchanging. True, Becca looked up at those stars and made a promise. To her grandfather, to Morrison, to Webb, to every warrior who'd taught her. I'll keep teaching. I'll keep the faith. I'll make sure the next generation knows what you knew. That some truths are timeless. That honor matters. That sacrifice means something. That seals don't quit. Don't surrender. Don't stop fight. Not in one lifetime. Not across generations. Not ever. She walked toward her car. Another day ending. Another beginning tomorrow. Students to teach. Knowledge to share. Warriors to forge. The mission her grandfather started. The mission Morrison died for. The mission Webb had spent 30 years fighting. Now it was hers, and she would honor it. Because some missions span lifetimes. Some wars never truly end. Some legacies transcend everything. And in the desert under eternal stars, truth remains. Warriors honor their teachers, and the knowledge passes forward. Always.